England in the 16th century, a land on the cusp of change, ruled by a young king who promised a golden age. Henry VIII, the second Tudor monarch, ascended the throne in 1509. He was just 17, athletic, handsome, and a scholar. The nation had high hopes for their new king, a stark contrast to his wary, miserly father, Henry VII. A true Renaissance prince, fluent in several languages and a patron of the arts, Henry excelled in sports, particularly jousting and hunting. Deeply religious, a devout Catholic, he even composed hymns and wrote theological treatises. His book, Defense of the Seven Sacraments, earned him the title Defender of the Faith from the Pope in 1521. Little did anyone know this defender would soon challenge the very foundations of the Church. His marriage to Catherine of Aragon, the widow of his elder brother Arthur, had produced only one surviving child, a daughter named Mary. The lack of a male heir weighed heavily on Henry's mind, setting the stage for events that would alter English history. Catherine of Aragon, daughter of the powerful Spanish monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella, had been a steadfast queen to Henry for almost 2 decades. She endured his numerous affairs, demonstrating unwavering loyalty and piety. Yet she couldn't provide him with the son he desperately craved. The death of their sons in infancy, leaving only Mary, fueled Henry's anxieties about the succession. He began to question the validity of his marriage to Catherine, his brother's widow. Theological arguments, fueled by his burgeoning infatuation with Anne Boleyn, led him to believe that God was punishing him for marrying his brother's wife. Henry, convinced that his marriage was cursed, sought an annulment from the Pope. However, Catherine, a woman of strong will and deep faith, refused to be cast aside. She fought back with unwavering determination, appealing directly to the Pope and garnering sympathy from Catholic rulers across Europe. The Pope's refusal to grant an annulment, influenced by political pressure from Catherine's nephew, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, infuriated Henry. He saw it as an infringement upon his authority as King of England. This defiance fueled his desire to break free from Rome's control. Anne Boleyn was unlike any woman Henry had ever encountered. Intelligent, witty, and alluring, she was the opposite of the pious and submissive Catherine. Anne, having spent time at the French court, possessed a sharp intellect and a captivating aura that enthralled the king. She refused to be just another royal mistress demanding to be queen. Henry, captivated by Anne, was determined to make her his queen and secure a legitimate male heir. He broke with the Catholic Church, declared himself supreme head of the Church of England, and annulled his marriage to Catherine. This act, a seismic shift in English history, sent shockwaves through Europe. In 1533, Henry and Anne married and she was crowned Queen of England. However, Anne's triumph was short-lived. She failed to produce a male heir, giving birth to a daughter, Elizabeth, who would later become one of England's greatest monarchs. Accused of adultery, incest, and treason, charges widely believed to be fabricated, Anne was imprisoned in the Tower of London. Anne Boleyn, the woman who had captivated a king and defied a church, was beheaded on May 17, 1536. Henry, deeply affected by Anne's execution in 1536, found solace in Jane Seymour, a lady-in-waiting who had caught his eye even before Anne's downfall. Unlike Anne, Jane was demure and unassuming, a stark contrast to her predecessor's fiery personality. She represented a return to tradition, a calming presence in the wake of the tumultuous years. Their marriage in 1536, though brief, brought a sense of stability to the kingdom. Jane provided Henry with what he had longed for, a male heir, Edward, who was born in 1537 and would succeed him as Edward VI. Jane's triumph, however, was tragically short-lived. She died shortly after giving birth to Edward in 1537, likely due to complications from childbirth. Her death devastated Henry, who saw in her the perfect wife and queen. Despite the brevity of their marriage, Jane Seymour held a special place in Henry's heart. Following Jane Seymour's death in 1537, Henry, driven by a need for a political alliance and seeking to further distance England from the Catholic powers of Europe, turned his attention to Anne of Cleves in 1539. Anne, a German princess, was from a powerful Protestant family, a strategic choice in a Europe increasingly divided by religion. A portrait of Anne, painted by Hans Holbein the Younger, depicted a woman of delicate beauty. Henry, impressed by the image, agreed to the marriage. However, upon meeting Anne in person in January 1540, he was deeply disappointed. He found her unattractive and lacking the sophistication of his previous wives. The marriage, a political maneuver rather than a love match, was doomed from the start. Anne, sensing an opportunity rather than a tragedy, agreed to the annulment in July 1540. She remained in England, enjoying a comfortable life and outliving Henry, who died in 1547. Following the brief and unsuccessful union with Anne of Cleves, Henry, now in his late 1540s and increasingly ailing, sought a young bride to reignite his passions. He found her in Katherine Howard, a lady-in-waiting who was a cousin of Anne Boleyn. Catherine, barely out of her teens, was lively, attractive, and naive, a stark contrast to the king she now called husband. Initially smitten by Catherine's youthful charm, Henry showered her with gifts and affection. However, their age difference and Catherine's lack of political savvy made for a volatile combination. Catherine, starved for affection and excitement, became entangled in a web of romantic affairs. Her enemies at court, sensing her vulnerability, exposed her secret liaisons. Accused of adultery, she suffered the same fate as her cousin, Anne Boleyn. Catherine's execution in 1542 sent shockwaves through the court. Catherine Parr, Henry's sixth and final wife, proved to be a woman of intelligence, compassion, and remarkable resilience. A well-educated woman, Catherine was a proponent of the Protestant faith and played a significant role in shaping the religious education of Henry's children, Edward, born 1537, Mary, born 1516, and Elizabeth, born 1533. She brought a sense of stability to the court, her intelligence and grace a calming influence on the aging and increasingly irascible king. Catherine, aware of the fate of Henry's previous wives, navigated the treacherous waters of court politics with remarkable skill. She acted as a mediator between Henry and his daughters, helping to reconcile the family riven apart by his pursuit of a male heir. Her ability to manage Henry's volatile temper and provide intellectual companionship made her an invaluable asset. Catherine's influence on Henry, though subtle, was significant. She encouraged his more merciful instincts and played a crucial role in securing the succession of his children. Catherine Parr's story is one of resilience, intellect, and the power of a woman's influence in a world dominated by men. Henry VIII's quest for a male heir had inadvertently triggered a religious revolution. His break from Rome, fueled by his desire to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, had far-reaching consequences for England. The Act of Supremacy in 1534 declared Henry the supreme head of the Church of England, severing ties with the papacy. Monasteries, once centers of religious life and power, were dissolved, their wealth confiscated by the crown. This move, while enriching the royal coffers, also led to social upheaval as many people relied on the monasteries for charity and support. The English Reformation, however, was more about politics than piety. New religious doctrines were introduced, though England remained doctrinally Catholic in the early years of the Reformation. Henry, despite his defiance of the Pope, still held many traditional religious beliefs. The consequences of Henry's actions would reverberate through generations, shaping the destiny of England and its place in the world. Henry VIII, the larger-than-life Tudor king, left an indelible mark on England. He was a man of contradictions, a devout Catholic who broke with Rome in 1534, a loving husband who condemned two of his wives to death, a ruthless tyrant who oversaw a flourishing of arts and culture. His reign from 1509 to 1547 saw England emerge from the fringes of Europe to become a major power on the world stage. He invested in the Navy, building powerful warships that would lay the foundation for England's future naval dominance. He reformed the English legal system and government, centralizing power and creating a more efficient bureaucracy. He was a patron of the arts, his court a center of Renaissance learning and culture. Writers like William Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, and Thomas More, 1478 to 1535, flourished during his reign. His legacy, however, is forever intertwined with the upheaval of the Reformation and the 6 wives who shaped his reign. Henry VIII was a complex and controversial figure. Henry VIII died in 1547, a shadow of his former self, his body ravaged by obesity and illness. He left behind a transformed England, a nation grappling with the legacy of the Reformation and the uncertainties of the Tudor dynasty. His children Edward ruled 1547 to 1553, Mary ruled 1553 to 1558, and Elizabeth ruled 1558 to 1603, would each rule England in turn, their reigns shaped by the tumultuous events of their father's rule. Henry's legacy is a tapestry woven from threads of power, passion, and paradox. He was a king who challenged the authority of the Church, broke with centuries of tradition, and reshaped the religious landscape of England. His pursuit of a male heir led to the downfall of queens, the rise of new religious ideas, and the establishment of England as a Protestant nation. He was a king of contradictions, a man of great intellect and immense cruelty, a devout Christian who challenged the very foundations of his faith. His reign was a period of immense change, a time of both great progress and terrible violence. Henry VIII's impact on England is undeniable.